Yes, hello, good evening and welcome to the DFF cinema of the Deutsches Filminstitut and Film Museum with our retrospective by Antoinetta Angelidi. And we, welcome you, and we welcome our guests, Antoinetta and Rea Walldén, her daughter. And tonight we had a full program. We already had the masterclass, very interesting. And now we have these two short films. We didn't want to show the short film with the long, but we wanted to put them together. The two films are quite different, one to the other. But still we decided to have them together. But what combines them, they are both made by you two. So that's true, yes. So the first film was shot in 1980, but it was afterwards in 2006, it was reworked or it was edited. Yes, okay. And the other one is from 2006. So yes, we have a very short introduction by you, and then afterwards we have we have the opportunity to talk. Thank you.
Το πρώτο, το ritual, αποφάσισα την παραμονή της δεύτερης γέννησης, δηλαδή τη γέννηση του δεύτερου παιδιού μου. Στη διάρκεια αυτής της εγκυμοσύνης, προς το τέλος μάλιστα, είχα ένα φόβο, μια αίσθηση θανάτου. Όχι ότι θα πέθαινε το παιδί, αλλά ότι θα πέθαινα εγώ. Και ήθελα να χαιρετήσω κατά κάποιο τρόπο το σώμα μου, και γι' αυτό την παραμονή αποφάσισα ότι, επειδή πάντοτε το να φιλμάρω, το να κάνω φιλμ τα πράγματα με τα οποία αγωνιούσα, αυτό μου έδινε θάρρος, και γι' αυτό το γυμνό μου σώμα, κινηματογράφησα το γυμνό μου σώμα, το οποίο άλυβα με λάδι, και κατά κάποιο τρόπο προετοιμαζόμουν για αυτή τη γέννα, προσπαθώντας να αποφύγω το φόβο του θανάτου. Τώρα πες για το ότι το φυλάξαμε στο πατάρι, ότι το βγάλαμε το 8 και έφτιαξες τον ήχο εσύ.
Okay. You're going to see two films. Antoinetta starts speaking about the first one you will see, the 12-12-80 ritual. This was shot when Antoinetta, it was the eve of the day that she gave birth to her second child, my brother. And so it is a film about her. She did a kind of ritual because she was afraid of death. For some, she felt that she might die in giving birth, because the first one, mine, was not easy, and so she had this fear, not so much that the child wouldn't survive, but that she wouldn't. And because always when she is afraid of something, making films is a way to deal with them and to take courage, she did this ritual. She caressed her body, and she put oil on it and caressed her naked, pregnant body to this ritual to get away from the fear of death. So let me tell you very fast some of the technical history of this work. So this was shot in 1980. 12 December 1980. The material was hidden in our attic, and we can tell you more about it later. And we took it out, we found it, the two of us, in 2008. It was undeveloped. We developed it together. We edited and composed the film, and I wrote the sound that you are going to hear. So it is a kind of dialogue, not only of Antoinetta with a child, but the child with Antoinetta, me as a child, and a complicated relation between mother and child. This is the first film. The other film that we are going to see, Noon Hour, is a hybrid film, something between documentary and fiction, because it documents a course of teaching film to young actors. So we taught young actors how to play in film, and this teaching, also created a narration about Grandiva. It is a text by Freud, which was commenting on a different text by Jensen, you will see, and also this combined with images from Giorgio de Chirico that always inspire Antoinetta's work, and also the feeling of the Greek island on which we did it, Syros. So it is a strange thing because there are exercises, student exercises, and at the same time a story about, a commentary about Freud's Grandiva.
Και μπορείς να πεις ότι πάντα πίστευα ότι το μεσημέρι είναι εξίσου επικίνδυνη ώρα με τα μεσάνυχτα.
Antoinetta always thought that the noon hour is equally dangerous with midnight.
Yes, first of all, I would like to ask a little bit more about why this film, how it happened that the film was that long in the attic and you forgot about it, or I don't know, you didn't want to develop it, or how it came.
Που ήταν τόσο καιρό στο πατάρι και πώς, τι έγινε, το ξέχασες, τι έγινε, πώς.
Το φιλμ αυτό έγινε παράνομα, με την έννοια ότι έγινε κρυφά από το σύζυγο εκείνης της εποχής.
Well, this film was made somehow illegally, in the sense that it was done without my then husband knowing.
Δεν ήξερε λοιπόν τίποτα, έγινε εντελώς κρυφά και δεν υπήρχε θέμα, δηλαδή έτσι κι αλλιώς την επομένη πήγαινα για να γεννήσω. Το έκρυψα λοιπόν αρχικά
στο σπίτι των γονιών.
Στο σπίτι των γονιών μου, ναι, και αργότερα στο πατάρι του σπιτιού που ήμουν πια μόνη μου με τα παιδιά μου.
Και άρα μετά ήρθες εσύ στο σπίτι, αυτό είναι η όλη ιστορία, αν το σκεφτείς, αφού είχε πεθάνει η γιαγιά, ήσουν πια στο σπίτι που ήταν κρυμμένο.
Ναι, αλήθεια είναι αυτό. Okay, ναι.
So anyway, it was done secretly, without my father knowing, with whom later on she divorced. And anyway, the next day she went to give birth, so there was not much time to think about it. And she put it in the attic of her parents' flat, which then became her flat later on. Yeah.
Ναι. Και μετά από αυτό πολύ γρήγορα δηλαδή αποφάσισα, δηλαδή πολύ γρήγορα μετά τη γέννηση του δεύτερου παιδιού μου αποφάσισα να χωρίσω και μπήκα σε μια διαδικασία, ξανά έφυγα για το Παρίσι με μια φίλη, χωρίζοντας δηλαδή, άφησα τα παιδιά στους γονείς μου και ξεκίνησα να γυρίσω την μεγάλη μήκου στον τόπο, όπου μιλούσα για μια γυναίκα που γένναγε και πέθανε, έχοντας ήδη αυτή την εμπειρία.
So very soon after the giving birth to her second child, she divorced and left with a friend, Clary, and they left together for Paris. And soon after, it was the shooting, the making of Topos, which is a film which, in fiction, speaks about a woman who gives birth and dies.
Και με τη διαδικασία των δυσκολιών γενικώς να κάνω ταινίες και τα λοιπά, είχε αφαιθεί αυτό το υλικό στο πατάρι. Έτσι κι αλλιώς ήταν πάρα πολύ δύσκολο. Εκείνη την εποχή, μην ξεχνάτε, δεν υπήρχε τέτοια εικόνα γενικώς, γυναίκα έγκυος και πόσο μάλλον στην Ελλάδα, αλλά και γενικότερα διεθνώς. Δηλαδή νομίζω αρχές της δεκαετίας του 90 πρωτοεμφανίστηκε σε μια ηθοποιός πολύ όμορφη σε αντίθεση με μένα που... Εντάξει, με άλλο τρόπο.
Okay. Yeah. So you have also to have in mind that at the time, in Greece in particular, but internationally too, people were not ready to see a pregnant body naked it was at least 1 decade later when a pregnant model was photographed naked, and she said, and she was beautiful and I was not, and I told her, no, you were too. But anyway, in a different way. So it was also that it was not ready to be seen by a wider.
Ναι, και μετά μπήκα στη διαδικασία πια να κάνω μυθοπλαστικές ταινίες. Νομίζω, δηλαδή δεν ξανά έκανα ντοκιμαντέρ.
Καλά.
Αυτό το πούμε.
Anyway, and her feature-length films are fiction, not documentaries, if we can name this one a documentary. But anyway, fiction, not performance.
Και επομένως, όταν πια μετά το θάνατο της μητέρας μου άρχισα να διδάσκω και μπήκα σε μια διαδικασία ιδιαίτερη για μένα, το θέμα της διδασκαλίας.
And then after the death of my mother, her mother, she started teaching in the university, and she entered in a different relation to what she was doing.
Και εσύ πήγες στην Αγγλία και σπούδαζες φιλοσοφία, και γυρνώντας στο...
And you, that is I, went to the UK and studied philosophy, and coming back...
Αποφασίσαμε... Δεν ξέρω πώς έγινε αυτή η ιστορία πραγματικά.
We decided, and I don't quite remember how.
Να βγάλω από το πατάρι αυτό το κρυμμένο υλικό, το ανεμφάνιστο ασπρόμαυρο.
And we decided, and she says, I don't know how, to take this material that was not developed out of the attic and develop it.
Ευτυχώς υπήρχαν ακόμα τα εργαστήρια εμφάνισης που σήμερα δεν μπορούμε να
laboratories
το
for
κάνουμε.
development were still open because soon after they closed, and now you cannot develop film in Greece.
Και νομίζω ότι δεν ήταν άσχετο από το γεγονός ότι το 6 είχαμε κάνει τη δεύτερη ταινία μαζί.
It's not completely irrelevant of the fact that on 2006 we had done the other film that you saw together. So we had kind of started doing smaller things, and parenthesis I add, you saw technically the second one has it's a very poor video because it was not intended to be
Ναι, αλλά επειδή μετά από καιρό διάφοροι οι οποίοι έλαβαν μέρος σε αυτή την performance θεωρούσαν πολύ σημαντική συνεισφορά στην εκπαίδευσή τους, ας πούμε, από την performance.
And now she passed on to the noon hour, to the other, that several of the actors that as students took part in this performance later on considered this as a very important part of their formation. That's why we kind of revisited the idea of showing also this film.
Yes.
Yeah.
Και μετά από αυτό ήρθε το άλλο.
And so then came ritual. If I may add, it was also the fact that we were discussing a new version of feminism.
Ναι.
Because as I was coming back from the UK and with a new, more aggressive, in different ways aggressive feminism, and so it is a kind of repetition. Remember in the documentary yesterday, Antoinetta said how by her relation to feminism in Paris, she came back and spoke to her grandmother, and her grandmother told her story and all this, and it is important because the story of the grandmother was also about giving birth and not dying, but almost dying, which also inspired Topos. So all that, so it is a kind of repetition that because I'm coming back from the UK and I'm telling her, because it is important for me, it is important the fact that she did that, and so a kind of more aggressively showing.
Yes, for me, this is, when I was seeing now the two together, also in my mind, there are a lot of common points somehow. So the one is the repetition, also how you structure the first films, and you have there the repetition moments. You have here the repetition moments.
Επανάληψης και πώς κάναμε πώς δομήσαμε τις αρχικές ταινίες. Και εδώ υπάρχει μια έννοια επανάληψης στην ώρα μεσημεριού.
Για αυτό το θέμα αυτό είναι μέσα στη διαδικασία της εκπαίδευσης των ηθοποιών. Και υπήρχε ένα θέμα.
Ολοκλήρωσα.
Ναι, θέλω να πω ότι ήταν πολύ σημαντικό και είναι πολύ σημαντικό για μένα όταν εκπαιδεύω τους ηθοποιούς, γιατί στο Masterclass μίλησα πιο πολύ για τους κινηματογραφιστές, αυτοί οι οποίοι θέλουν να γίνουν σκηνοθέτες. Ενώ εκεί είχα ηθοποιούς τους οποίους ήθελα να βάλω σε ένα παιχνίδι με τον εαυτό τους, ας πούμε, κατά κάποιο τρόπο, και μιλώντας τους για τα όνειρα στην αρχή και βάζοντάς τους με το που είπαμε ότι θα δουλέψουμε με τα όνειρα, τους βάλαμε και ο καθένας είπε μια κουβέντα για το πώς το φανταζόταν, ας πούμε. Και έτσι έχω και να πω κι άλλα μετά.
So, for the question of repetition, not only with regards the repetition, our relation to our relation, but the repetition inside the film Noon Hour, there are a lot of repetitions. So, and Natascha made the comparison with the notion of repetition in the documentary. However, Antoinetta says that to start with, there was the repetition of teaching, because this was a series of exercises for actors. And there, Antoinetta was teaching actors ways to come in contact with their bodies and themselves. And she notes that the description she did in the masterclass before now, it was about how she taught film directors. But here it was not film directors, but it was also again using the means of dream. If I may add, also the notion of dream and repetition is very central to the text of Grandiva. It is a fiction, a short story, a novella. Ναι, είναι novella. It's not
δεν είναι μυθιστόρημα, είναι νουβέλα.
So it is a story in a way in which the repetition, the remembrance of the past returns. And Freud uses it to explain how...
Πώς ένας μυθιστόρημα, αυτό είναι το βασικό που ο Φρόιντ πάντα έλεγε, ότι αν θέλετε να προχωρήσετε στους ασκούμενους ψυχαναλυτές, τους έλεγε διαβάστε τους καλλιτέχνες, διαβάστε τι γράφουν οι καλλιτέχνες, γιατί αυτοί προηγούνται από τους ψυχαναλυτές.
Freud always said to the psychoanalysts that were to become that you have to study the artists because the artists come first. Apart from that, however, in the novella, it is the notion of a kind of repressed memory that comes back. Therefore, there is the notion of repetition already there. So a study on that has a meaning to do it repetitively. And also this is also the notion of this ghost of the past, which in reality is not a ghost, it's a real memory.
A real person.
And all this game is weaved with the fact of the teaching of the actors. So the form of the film is both part of the teaching and of the commentary.
Δηλαδή, έπαιρνα συγκεκριμένες φράσεις από το Γένσεν και αυτό το έδινα στους ηθοποιούς, οι οποίοι έπρεπε, και για μένα είναι πολύ σημαντικό ότι όλοι οι ηθοποιοί, όπως και αν είναι τα σώματά τους και αυτό που φέρουν ερχόμενοι, πρέπει όλοι να μπουν στην ίδια διαδικασία άσκησης. Δεν θέλω καθόλου να ξεχωρίζω τους ηθοποιούς. Είναι όλοι όπως... Ναι.
It is very important for Antoinetta that every actor, regardless of what they carry with them from their body to their experiences, they have to enter with all that they carry into the same process, into the same... So here exactly we have this entering of the different experiences and different bodies in the same roles. The previous thing that she says is that we chose specific parts of the novella, and so it is a kind of dramaturgical interpretation of specific moments in the novella, which are transformed into exercises that Antoinetta teaches to the actors. It is quite important, the fact that these also act as mini performances in situ. So, for example, it was in the middle of the market, and the scene was taking place, the exercise was taking place in the middle of the market, without stopping the circulation of the market.
Είναι πολύ σημαντικό δηλαδή να καταλάβουν οι ηθοποιοί ότι πρέπει να έχουν την αυτοσυγκέντρωση του αυτού που κάνουν, ανεξαρτήτως του τι γίνεται γύρω τους. Μπορεί να σκοτώνονται αυτοί, πρέπει με πολύ μεγάλη αυστηρότητα να κάνουν αυτό που πρέπει να κάνουν.
And it is very crucial for the actors and actresses that they have self-concentration. No matter what happens around them, they have to do exactly what they have to do, no matter what happens around. And by the way, this was also very useful considering that they were like ghosts.
Yes.
They passed through their life and
αυτό είναι πολύ ενδιαφέρον. Είναι πολύ ενδιαφέρον. Αυτοί που περπατούσαν, το στίχημα ήταν ότι πρέπει να περπατάνε πάρα πολύ αργά, εντυμένοι όλοι με μαύρα. Το μαύρα που είχαν φυσικά δεν ήταν τίποτα φτιαγμένο, και αυτοί να περπατάνε πάρα πολύ, και ο κόσμος συνέχιζε να δρά, είτε υπήρχαν, και είναι πολύ ενδιαφέρον διότι ο κόσμος βασικά. Όχι, δεν είναι μόνο τους αγνούσε, δεν βλέπει. Αυτό είναι η δική μου άποψη, ότι ο κόσμος δεν βλέπει.
So the bet, the exercise, this particular one, was that they had to cross the market walking very slowly, the slowest possible they could. By the way, they all wore black. This was also a direction, but their own black clothes. We didn't have, obviously, somebody to make the clothes. So they had to cross very, very slowly. And the interesting thing, I say, it is that the people didn't take much notice of them. And she says, but no, it's more than that. It is that mainly the people don't see.
Yes,
the people don't,
I'm sure.
They don't take
they don't take δεν συναισθάνονται τι βλέπουν, πού βρίσκονται.
They don't really feel what they see. So it's true that a few of them did a little bit like that, and what are you doing?
Συναισθήσαν τον δρόμο.
But there was not a big deal, the fact that a few mad people were walking very, very slowly all together in the middle of the market.
Ναι. Και μετά, ξέρω εγώ, βλέπετε ότι είναι ενδιαφέρον και για τους θεατές αυτό, ότι ανάλογα με το πώς είναι ο καθένας, διαφορετικά πιάνει αυτό. Και επίσης την άσκηση που τους έδινα, ότι θα χαϊδεύονται, αλλά με απόσταση, δεν θα αγγίζονται. Και είναι πολύ ενδιαφέρον αυτό, γιατί βγάζει πολύ πιο ενδιαφέροντα πράγματα από το να αγγιζόντουσαν, ας πούμε.
So, two things that are very interesting. The one thing is that how each person interprets bodily the same direction. For example, how every one of them was touching, they had to catch a little thing that didn't exist, of course. And everyone was catching it in a different way. Also, a specific interesting exercise was when she told them basically to do the love scene without touching each other. And this, in a way, it is even more interesting. By not touching, it becomes a choreography. And so this was the direction in the case. When you saw the love scene, was not meant to have the touching, which is both a very useful exercise, but also meaningful in the context of Gradiva, where obviously they didn't touch. Yeah. There was a huge love story without the love story.
Και εκτός από τα αρχικά που είπαν ο καθένας για το πώς βλέπει την άσκηση με τα όνειρα, όλες οι υπόλοιπες λέξεις είναι από την Gradiva του Jensen.
So all the speech that you hear, with the exception of the initial sequence before the titles, were the beginning title, were from Gradiva. They are from the text. So all the phrases that you see or hear, and the phrases that we use as a first material for the exercises of speech. There are some singing, speaking exercises. Everything are from Gradiva, with the exception of the initial sequence, where actually the question was something with whether they remember a dream of theirs. Again, if you remember, the method that Antoinetta has initiated with teaching in the university is asking her students their dreams, and I'm doing that also for many years now. So this initial question about dreams, it was given also to these students, and so their exercise was both to answer the question and do a very close up, and they were for the first time seeing themselves as close up. Mind you, it is a bit older. Nowadays, people have a better relation with the camera, if not what we would do. So the fact that we have not only the close-up, but the fact that we had the camera in the market and nobody really realized that it was a camera. Very few people did. Oh, Rea is here. What she's doing? Not at all. Nowadays, people are more self-aware of cameras. So it might have been slightly different nowadays. Yeah.
Maybe. Και επίσης για το λόγο κάναμε μια δοκιμή στον κανόνα.
Yeah. You must have noticed.
Την επανάληψη της λέξης.
You must have noticed that some of the exercises of the speech were canons. You know, it starts and then starts again. And
με μια μικρή διαφορά. Και κάνει μια...
Maybe we have time for one small question if somebody wants to ask something.
Selfie. If we have other cameras, the selfies, the handies, if we have the handies and we make selfies, θα μπορούσαμε να έρθουμε στη λογική του εαυτός, εαυτή, εαυτόν.
Okay. Yes, the use of the selfie today, it would be different. Still, students don't really know what we are discussing, because the fact that for example, in cinema, it is certainly not as in theater, because a little detail has a huge meaning, a huge visibility. So the fact that they don't need to scream, or rather, they better not scream.
Εμείς μην ξεχνάμε ότι αυτοί ήταν ηθοποιοί του θεάτρου και είχαν μία πρώτη εμπειρία
θεατρική.
Όχι. Αυτή ήταν το παρελθόν, αλλά τώρα ήταν η πρώτη τους κινηματογραφική εμπειρία.
Of course, the students were students of the National Theatre. They had experience in theatre acting, and this was their first coming to that in relation to film acting, which is very, very different. And a lot of the exercises had to do with this difference.
Okay, thank you, because the next string starts soon.
Also, thank you.